It is Tuesday, April 21st, and we are together for our next session of our Read Aloud with the book Wonder. You might notice I'm wearing one of my favorite shirts with my buddies, Piggy and Elephant. And today, since I don't have you to read with me, I have two little friends joining us for the Read Aloud, my friends Piggy and Elephant. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about Via and her story. We're back to the beginning of the school year. It's actually starting off with a chapter called Breakfast, and it's the day after the first day of school. We also learn a little bit about the medical reasons for Auggie to have so many problems and needing to have so many surgeries with the problems he has with his mouth and his jaw and his face. So we learn about something called genetics in one of the chapters today. Thanks for joining me. Sit back, relax. Let's read Wonder together. Can you pick me up from school today? I said the next morning, smearing some cream cheese on my bagel. Mom was making Auggie's lunch, American cheese on whole wheat bread, soft enough for Auggie to eat, while August sat eating oatmeal at the table. Dad was getting ready to go to work. Now that I was in high school, the new school routine was going to be that Dad and I would take the subway together in the morning, which meant his having to leave 15 minutes earlier than usual. And then I'd get off at my stop and he would keep going. And Mom was going to pick me up after school in the car. I was going to call Miranda's mother to see if she could drive you home again, Mom answered. No, Mom, I said quickly. You pick me up, or I'll just take the subway. You know, I don't want you to take the subway by yourself yet, she answered. Mom, I'm 15. Everybody my age takes the subway by themselves. She can take the subway home, said Dad from the other room, adjusting his tie as he stepped into the kitchen. Well, why can't Miranda's mother just pick her up again? Mom argued with him. She's old enough to take the subway by herself, Dad insisted. Mom looked at both of us. Is something going on? She didn't address her question to either one of us in particular. Well, you would know if you had come back to check on me, I said spitefully, like you said you would. Oh, no, Via, said Mom, remembering how she had completely ditched me the night before. She put down the knife that she was using to cut Auggie's grapes in half. They're still a choking hazard for him because of the size of his palate. It means the inside of his mouth. I'm so sorry. I fell asleep in Auggie's room, and by the time I woke up... I know, I nodded indifferently. Mom came over and put her hands on my cheeks and lifted my face to look at her. I'm really, really sorry, she whispered, and I could tell she was. It's okay, I said. Via, Mom, it's fine. And this time I meant it. She looked so genuinely sorry that I just wanted to let her off the hook. She kissed and hugged me and then returned to the grapes. So, is something going on with Miranda? She asked. Just that she's acting like a complete jerk, I said. Miranda's not a jerk, Auggie quickly chimed in. Well, she can be, I yelled. Believe me. Okay then, well, I'll pick you up, no problem, Mom said decisively, swooping the half grapes into a snack bag with the side of her knife. Well, that was the plan all along anyway. I'll pick up Auggie from school in the car, and then we'll pick you up. We'll probably get there about 3:45. No, I said firmly, before she'd even finished. Isabel, she can take the subway, said Dad impatiently. She's a big girl now. She's reading War and Peace for crying out loud. What does War and Peace have to do with anything, Esther? Answered Mom, clearly annoyed. It means you don't have to pick her up in the car, like she's a little girl, he said sternly. Via, are you ready? Get your bag and let's go. I'm ready, I said, pulling on my backpack. Bye, Mom. Bye, Auggie. I kissed them both quickly, and I headed toward the door. "Do you even have a Metro card?" Mom said after me. "Of course she has a Metro card," answered Dad, fully exasperated. "Yeesh, Mama. Stop worrying so much. Bye," he said, kissing her on the cheek. "Bye, big boy," he said to Auggie, kissing him on top of the head. "I'm proud of you. Have a good day." "Bye, Daddy, you too," Auggie answered. Dad and I jogged down the stoop stairs and headed down the block. "Call me after you get on the subway," Mom yelled at me from the window. I didn't even turn around, but I just waved my hand at her so she would know that I'd heard her. Dad did turn around, walking backward for a few steps. "War and peace, Isabel," he called out, smiling as he pointed at me. "War and peace." And that's the end of that chapter. I think the dad is trying to help Auggie and Via's mom realize that maybe Via can handle a lot more than she realizes, because that's what she's been doing pretty much her whole life. The next chapter is called Genetics 101. There are a lot of medical and scientific words and explanations in this chapter, so listen carefully. This is Via telling the side of her story. Both sides of Dad's family were Jews from Russia and Poland. Papa's grandparents fled the pogroms and ended up in New York City at the turn of the century in the early 1900s. Tada's parents fled the Nazis in Germany and ended up in Argentina in the 40s. Papa and Tada met at a dance on the Lower East Side of New York while she was just here in town visiting a cousin. They got married and moved to Bayside and had Dad and Uncle Ben. Mom's side of the family is from Brazil, except for her mother, my beautiful grands, and her dad, Augusto, who died before I was born. The rest of Mom's family and all of her glamorous aunts and uncles and cousins, they still live in Alto Leblon, a ritzy suburb south of Rio. Grands and Augusto moved to Boston in the early 60s and had Mom and Aunt Kate, who's married to Uncle Porter. Mom and Dad met in college at Brown University, and they've been together ever since. Isabel and Nate, like two peas in a pod, they moved to New York right after college. They had me a few years later, and then they moved into a brick townhouse in North River Heights. It's the hippie stroller capital of upper Manhattan when I was about a year old. Not one person in this exotic mix of my family gene pool has ever shown any obvious signs of having what August has. I've pored, that means looked, over grainy pictures of my long dead relatives wearing babushkas, in black and white snapshots of distant cousins in crisp white linen suits, and of soldiers in uniforms and ladies with beehive hairdos. Polaroids of bell-bottom teenagers and long-haired hippies, and not once have I ever been able to detect or see even the slightest trace of August's face in their faces. Not a one. But after August was born, my parents underwent something called genetic counseling. They were told that August had what seemed to be a previously unknown type of mandibulofacial dystosis caused by an autosomal recessive mutation in the TCOF1 gene, which is located on chromosome 5, complicated by a hemifacial microsomia characteristic of OAV spectrum. Sometimes these mutations occur during pregnancy, and sometimes they're inherited from one parent who's carrying the dominant gene. Sometimes they're caused by the interaction of many genes, possibly in combination with environmental factors. This is called multifactorial inheritance. In August's case, the doctors were able to identify one of the, quote, single nucleotide deletion mutations that made a war on his face. The weird thing is, though you would never know it from looking at them, both of my parents carry that mutant gene, and I carry it too. So that was really a complicated description of why Auggie has so many problems and why his face looks so different than other people's. It's a lot of medical and scientific words. Basically, it's talking about how our bodies are made up of chromosomes and how they can get messed up. And that's what happened to Auggie. And nobody knew that that would happen. It was just kind of a surprise. The next chapter talks about how Via feels about carrying the gene that causes the problems that Auggie has. The chapter is called the Punnett Square. If I have children, there is a 1 out of 2 chance, half of a chance, that I will pass on the defective gene to them. That doesn't mean that they'll look like August, but they would carry the gene that got double dosed in August and helped make him the way he is. So if I marry someone who also has that defective same gene, there's a 1 in 2 chance that our kids will carry the gene and look totally normal. 50% chance. And there's a 1 in 4 chance, a 25% chance, that our kids will not carry the gene at all. And there's a 1 in 4 chance, a 25% chance, that our kids would look like August. If August has children with someone who doesn't have the trace of the gene, there's a 100% probability that their kids will inherit the gene, but a 0% chance that their kids will have a double dose of it like August, which means that they would carry the gene no matter what, but they could look totally normal. If he marries someone who has the gene, their kids will have the same odds as my kids. This only explains the part of August that's explainable, because there's that other part of his genetic makeup that is not inherited, but it was just incredibly bad luck. Countless doctors, tons of doctors, have drawn little tic-tac-toe grids for my parents over the years to try to explain the genetic lottery or the chances of the genetics that he has. The doctors use something called Punnett Squares to determine inheritance, and something called recessive and dominant genes, and probabilities and chance. But for all they know, there's more that they don't know. They can try to forecast the odds and make predictions, but they can't guarantee them. They use terms like germline mosaicism and chromosome rearrangement or delayed mutation to explain why their science is not exact science. I actually like how doctors talk. I like the sound of science. I like how all these words that you don't understand can explain things that you can't understand. There are countless people under words like germline mosaicism and chromosome rearrangement or delayed mutation. There are countless babies who will never be born, like mine. So what Via is saying here is that she's scared about all of these chances that her child, if she had children, might look like Auggie. So she's telling us that she doesn't plan to ever have children. And the last chapter that we'll read today is called Out with the Old. So what is going out, do you think? Miranda and Ella blasted off. They attached themselves to a new crowd destined for high school glory, the popular kids. After a week of painful lunches where all they would do was just talk about people that didn't even interest me, I decided to make a clean break for it. They asked no questions and I told no lies. We just went our separate ways. I didn't even mind after a while. I stopped going to lunch for about a week, though, to make the transition easier. It was a change. To avoid the fake, oh shoot, sorry, there's no room for you at our table. Olivia, it was just easier to go to the library and read. So I finished War and Peace in October. It was an amazing book. People think it's such a hard one to read, but it's really just like a soap opera with lots of characters and people falling in love and fighting for love, dying for love. I want to be in love like that someday. I want my husband to love me the way Prince Andre loved Natasha. So I ended up hanging out with a girl named Eleanor, who I had known from my days at PS 22 elementary school, though we had gone to different middle schools. Eleanor had always been a really smart girl, a little bit of a crybaby back then, but nice. I had never really realized how funny she was. She's not laugh out loud funny like my dad funny, but full of great quips. And she never knew how lighthearted I could be. Eleanor, I guess, had always been under the impression that I was very serious. And as it turns out, she never liked Miranda and Ella. She thought that they were stuck up. I gained entry through Eleanor to the smart kids table at lunch. It was a larger group than I'd been accustomed to hanging out with, and a more diverse group. It included Eleanor's boyfriend, Kevin, who would definitely become class president someday, and a few techie guys, and some girls like Eleanor who were members of the yearbook committee and the debate club, and a quiet guy named Justin, who had small round glasses and he played the violin, and who I had an instant crush on. When I would see Miranda and Ella, who were now hanging out with the super popular set, we'd say, "Hey, what's up?" and just move on. Occasionally, Miranda would ask me how August was doing and then say, "Well, tell him I said hello." And this I never did. Not to spite Miranda, but because August was in his own world these days, and there were times at home that we never crossed paths. So now that she's in high school, her life has really changed, and Miranda is trying to sort things out. She's had to let go of her old friends and make new friends. We will pick up tomorrow on page 109 and the chapter called October 31st. So we're back to Halloween, which was where we left off with Auggie. Only now we'll hear about what happens on Halloween from Via's point of view. Thanks for sharing today's read aloud with me. It was a lot to think about all the medical reasons that Auggie has so many problems. And if you watch the video on today's morning message, you'll learn a little bit more about chromosomes and why some people are born with something called Down syndrome. Thanks for joining me. Let's make it a great day.